Hello, I'm Ben Buddy Slack, and I'm the founder of the Swan Song Project. The Swan Song Project is a charity that helps people facing the end of their lives to write and record their own original songs. I'm doing a podcast with songwriters where I ask them to share with us one of their songs, tell us a little bit about how they wrote it, share a songwriting tip that might be useful for new songwriters, aspiring songwriters, and then to share with us a song that's meaningful to them in some way related to bereavement. This episode features Frank Turner, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, today I'm here with Frank Turner. Thanks for joining me, Frank.
Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Very well. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. I mean, surviving lockdown as best I can. It's sort of definitely becoming like the new normal at this point. Yeah, getting by. All good.
Good stuff. Yeah, I really appreciate your time. So thanks for joining us. If anyone's seen these songwriter interviews before, we do them in three sections. So first, we're going to have one of Frank's songs, and we're going to talk a little bit about how he wrote that. Then in section two, Frank's going to share with us a songwriting tip that might be useful for new aspiring songwriters. And then section three, we're going to talk about a song that's meaningful to Frank in some way relating to bereavement. So I'll ask Frank to introduce the song you've chose for us, then we'll have a bit of a chat about that.
Well, the song I chose is a song that came out back in 2008, and it's a song about my friend Lex, and the song is called Long Live the Queen.
When I got the call, yeah, my friend Lex was lying in the hospital. She'd been pretty sick for about half a year, but it seemed like this time the end was drawing near. So dropped my plans and jumped the next London train. I found her laid up and in a lot of pain. Her eyes met mine and then I understood her plan forecast wasn't looking too good. So sad as one of stories for a little while. Tried to raise a mood and tried to raise a smile, but she silenced all my ramblings with a shake of her head. Me close and listen, this is what she said now. You live to dance another day. It's just how you'll have to dance for the two of us. Stop looking so time to rest and sing with all of your hearts. The queen is dead, yeah, she told me she was sick of all the hospital food. Doctors relatives draining her blood. She said, I know I'm dying, but I'm not finished just yet. You're dying for a drink and for a cigarette. So he has to find to book ourselves a cheap hotel, center of the city, to raise some LA waste to all the clothes. And then when everyone else is on asleep, we'll know we could have done. You live to dance another day. It's just how you'll have to dance for the two of us. Stop looking sad. Time to caress. Sing with all of your hearts. The queen is dead. And South London's not the same anymore. The queen is dead. Of the greats is finally gone to bed. So I was working on some words when Sarah called me up. She said that Lex had gone to sleep and wasn't waking up. And even though I knew that there was nothing to be done, I felt bad for not being there, and now, well, she was gone. So I tried to think what Lex would want me to do at times like this when I was feeling blue. So I gathered up some friends to spread the sad news, and we headed to the city for a drink or two, and we sang. We live to dance another day. It's just now we have to dance for one more of us. Stop looking sad. Time to rest and sing with all of your heart.
Okay, brilliant. So that was Long Live the Queen by Frank Turner. So what can you tell us about writing that one, Frank?
Well, it's a very literal song on some levels. It's a song about my friend Alexa, who was somebody who I met when I was in the band Million Dead. And we very quickly became firm friends, partners in crime, whatever you want to say. We hung out a lot. And when I first met her, she was someone who had beaten breast cancer once, and in fact was involved in a bunch of fundraising. She had a gig called Lexapalooza she did every year as a fundraiser for the breast cancer campaign. And then a couple of years later, the breast cancer came back, and she lost the fight in the end. As is often the way in these things, our friendship circle, we knew that it was coming, which gives you sort of some time to prepare, but it's not quite, and you never quite have a date on it or anything like that, and it's all very difficult for everybody. But and it was strange for me because my mind went to writing a song, but I felt quite weird the idea of writing a song before she'd actually died, and in some ways I felt like morbid even thinking about that before she'd actually passed away. But so my mind was kind of, wheels were turning. I found out that she'd died when I was in Paris. Actually, I spent a lot of time in Paris at the time, and I got the phone call. I'd been to see her one last time not long beforehand, in the middle of a tour. And I walked up the hill, the Montmartre hill to Sacré-Cœur, and sat down and pretty much wrote the song in one draft. I think because at least subconsciously my mind had been kind of playing through some ideas. So it's kind of a song about the last time that I went to see her. And, I went down and we did joke about how we should get out there and hit the town and go clubbing or whatever. We didn't, obviously. She was a very ill person at that time, but it was a kind of a lovely moment to kind of like talk about the good times. And Lex talked about how she didn't want anyone to wear black at her funeral and this kind of thing. So yeah, it was as these things often are, it was a very sort of bittersweet meeting, a combination of like friendship and laughter and memory of good times and all the rest of it, all overshadowed by something less good. And that thing about her saying that she didn't want people to wear black at the funeral was great, because it was just like, it was so in keeping with her character, and it really helped me kind of think about what I wanted to say in song format about her, which was that we should celebrate someone's life when they die rather than mourn their death, or at least the way to mourn their death is to celebrate what it is that you've lost and to remember that positivity. So that's how the song came together.
Yeah, it's a really powerful song, frankly. It really, I know it touches a lot of people. And one of the lines that stands out to me was the thinking about what she would have wanted. And that last verse is the line about that, and that's something that comes up a lot in the work we do with Swan Song. A lot of people have that when they're writing these songs. People, they can understand people are going to have some grief, but they don't want them to suffer more than. They want them to go and celebrate their life. And
completely. And Lex was. I don't mean this to say this as if it's the complete judgment of her character. She knew how to have a good time. And I think that, she wanted everyone to kind of wear pink suits and get drunk, which is what we did at her funeral, actually. And it was similarly a very kind of happy and sad day at the same time. But yeah, I mean, obviously I've never been in that position myself, but thinking about it casually, you wouldn't want to sort of impose more grief on the people that you love. You'd want this if you could.
Yeah, definitely. We're cracking up a little bit there, Frank, but I think we got most of it.
Okay.
That was good. Yeah. And it's great that her spirit lives on in this song, and it's kind of impacted so many people. Obviously, it's a very popular song of yours. How do you find performing it? Like, did it take you a while? Were you okay performing to begin with, or was it something that you've had to?
I think that it was initially. I didn't sort of know how it was going to go over. Very, very quickly, it was a song that landed with a lot of people, and in some ways, the art of songwriting is to take a personal experience and universalize it. I mean, that's a very simplistic way of saying that. But one specific and personal to you and other people who you've never met and who don't know anyone involved in the story of the song go, oh, I know what you mean. That's kind of the magic moment of being a songwriter, you know?
Yeah.
So very quickly, a lot of people started connecting with it. And then actually, weirdly, it became kind of one of my first, if not my actual first sort of like hit in quotes. And that was very kind of surreal because one of the things that was funny was that Lex, I met during the time I was in Million Dead. I'd started doing this kind of folk singer-songwriter thing, and she was supportive as a friend, but she wasn't that keen on it musically. And then that was the song that then took me to, you know, to greater career heights. And I think that she would have enjoyed that. I think she would have found that quite funny. But yeah, so playing it live, I mean, it was a yet further mixed emotional experience, because quite often it would be the song. For a long time, it was the song that the set would build towards, and it's the one that would get the big sing-along going. It still gets the big sing-along going, but you know, it was just kind of like it's difficult to feel sad about a song that's doing that for you, simply from the point of view of being a performing musician. But of course, it's about something sad. But then, you know, that moment of connection is joyous, you know, and to see a room full of people, you know, and it's a song that would make people very emotional sometimes when I would play it, but that's cathartic in its way as well, because it's empathy. It's realizing that we're all connected in our emotional experiences. So generally speaking, it's a positive thing. There've been a couple of rough days, anniversaries, not always the easiest. And my uncle, who was kind of my surrogate dad when I was a kid, passed away a couple of years ago, and I was on tour, and we were playing like the biggest show of the tour was in New York that night, and we did the show. And I played that song and dedicated it for him, and that was a difficult one.
Yeah, sorry to hear about that. But yeah, it's great having that song. What can fill that? And I guess, you know, because you say the song can adapt for different scenarios, and you know, for yourself and for obviously for everyone, all your fans who listen to it, and it'll connect with them about their experiences. So yeah, that's brilliant, Frank. Thanks a lot for sharing. Let's move into the second section of the show. So this is where I ask my guests to share with us a songwriting tip that might be useful for you aspiring songwriters. So what would your tip be, Frank, for us?
Well, I mean, the thing about this is I've got loads on some levels. And I actually wrote a whole book about songwriting. So maybe my tip should be read my book. I'm kidding. And in fact, one of the things it says on the book is that the very kernel at the middle of songwriting is a thing that is very difficult to talk about or to practice or anything like that. There's something kind of just magic that happens we don't really have vocabulary to talk about. And that's good. That's how it should be. But beyond that, I think the best tip for being a songwriter I know is to learn loads and loads and loads of songs by other people. And when I say learn, I don't mean like learn them forever, that you'll be able to play them at the drop of a hat anywhere you go. Just sit down and figure out the chords and the melody and the words to, first of all, to songs that you like, because that's a good place to start. But particularly as you go on to songs that are sort of outside your comfort zone, you know, because the thing is, in the process of learning a song, it's like looking under the hood of the car. You get to see how it's put together. You know, you might think to yourself, as I did myself, like there's an Allman Brothers song called Rambling Man, and there's a change in the chorus that just breaks my heart every time I hear it. And the only way I could really think to kind of examine that was to learn the song and to see how it feels to sing that melody line while that guitar line's doing that or whatever. And I'm not saying, of course, that you copy anything, but the more of these songs that you kind of look under the hood of them, you build a kind of a sort of an arsenal, you know, of tips and tricks, and so eventually you reach this point. It's a bit like the bit at the end of the Matrix when all the letters start coming down, and you know, it's just sort of. I guess a short way of saying this would be learned a whole bunch of songs by ABBA a few years ago, because in more recent years I spent a lot of time looking at the writing of people like George Jones and Tammy Wynette and Loretta Lynn and Bill Withers, and, you know, and it's not just listening to their records, it's the act of picking up or whatever it is, and learning how I'm talking about learning guitar solo, but just learning how other people do things, and then that it gives you a wider vocabulary for when you want to say your own thing.
Yeah, definitely. That's really good advice. I remember there was a while where when I was first getting into songwriting and feeling like as a songwriter there, well, I'm done playing covers now. I'm writing my own songs, and that's what I should be focusing on. And then I feeling a bit burnt out with that, and then going back to actually I'm just going to learn some. And when you get a new song that really fascinates you, then like you say, going under the hood with it, learning how it works,
right.
and then
Completely.
all applies to your own.
And it's I do think that playing covers like in a live environment is a really good discipline. Actually, obviously it's not a thing that everybody wants to do forever, but it's like a lot of people I know who are really good at what they do have done that for a time. The best example being Billy Bragg. Billy Bragg was a busker for ages and got really good at like entertaining a crowd, but also seeing how songs are put together that entertain a crowd and all the rest of it. But yeah, I hear songs on the radio and I pick up a guitar and work them out. There's a song called Symphony by Clean Bandit that came out, I was about to say the other day, it was probably a couple of years ago now, but it's kind of like a big banging pop tune, but it's just such a great melody. And I just worked out the underlying chords and how the melody, and just kind of for personal interest's sake. But it was, it was that curiosity of like, well, how do they do that? How do they make me feel like that with those chords?
And it's great when you get a song like, I was saying that, the songwriters that you know and looked up to for a while, and you kind of, when you've done that with them, you kind of feel like you got their tricks a little bit. Then something else comes along, you're like, what's that? And it's just,
right.
it's so exciting then when you've got it. And then I think it's, you've got a trick bag. So when you're doing your own songs, you can pull it out your own bag of like, oh, there's this way, this works, this song worked here. Or,
yeah. And I guess, that's what we're talking about here is just trying to make your trick bag bigger. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's not stealing, but it's just learning what all the other turnarounds that people have used in the past are, and then being able to say, when you're writing your own thing, you can reach in and grab that if you need it, and it's there and it's to hand.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thanks a lot for that, Frank. Really useful. Let's move into the third section now, shall we? This is where I ask my guests to choose a song that's meaningful to them in some way relating to bereavement. And what I do here is I'll put the link in the description. So if you're not familiar with the song, I'll ask Frank to introduce it in a moment, and you can go and listen to that song somewhere else. So what song did you choose for us, Frank?
So I picked a song by a band called the Weakerthans, who are a Canadian indie band, and their main guy in the Weakerthans was called John K. Sampson. He now tours as a solo artist. It's basically the same thing. He's got pretty much the same band back together again now. So same deal, but he's essentially my favorite writer. And the song is called Night Windows, and it's taken from an album called Reunion Tour that came out in 2006, maybe, something like that. That's a guess.
Great stuff. So if you're watching this, you're not familiar with the song, you can go and listen to it. I wasn't familiar with it until Frank sent it to me, and I've been really enjoying it. It's a beautiful song.
Yeah. Well, it's a song. I being an enormous fan and kind of a friend of John's. I mean, we've played together and we've hung out a little bit. Like, I find it quite difficult to be completely relaxed around him because he's my favorite writer, and I'm just a bit like whenever we're hanging out. But chatting to him about the song, it's visually based on a painting by Edward Hopper, the American painter, of a deserted building at night with light streaming through the windows. But the way that John takes that image is just talking about looking up at a window where someone who you've lost used to live, as you walk down the street, and just kind of imagining you catch a glance of their face, and in that moment remembering everything that you've lost. And it absolutely devastated me the first time I heard that song. Not even just the opening line of the song. It says, "And the stick count for the song of knowing that you're gone." And it was just like, as a musician, that's about the saddest thing you'll ever hear in your life, but I mean, John deals in kind of melancholia, shall we say, bittersweet, incredibly poetic and literate imagery. But just the whole imagery of the song is so beautiful to me, particularly the section at the end where it's all about sentences that you never finish. I miss the way, could we? And it's just all the things that you go to say to somebody who you've lost, and then remember halfway through the sentence that you can't say them anymore, and it becomes a kind of chant at the end of the song, and it's very, very emotionally powerful for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I share that sentiment. It's such, and I really love those. Like, say, he paints the picture based on a painted picture, but the way he paints the picture in the song of that setting, and then the meaning behind it is it's really beautiful. And it's one of the things I always think with songs, like it seems like it would be easier than it is of how much is said in that setting.
Well, completely. One of the things I love about John is that, unlike most songwriters, myself included, he's genuinely a poet. Writing lyrics and writing poetry are not quite the same thing, in my opinion. But John is definitely like a poet. And there are lines in the song, the full moon makes our faces shine like over-iron polyester. Like, no one says that in a song. You know what I mean? And there's kind of a reference to kind of like the international wars that were happening around then. It's like, we'll drown the generals out in static. I always love that line, but it's just all these little kind of touches of imagery that are so real and so specific that immediately you're there, I can't say that there was somebody specific that I'd lost when I heard that song for the first time. It's not quite so linked with one individual for me, but through the process of living, you lose people, and on hearing it, a whole host of faces came back to me.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for sharing it, Frank. It's a really powerful song. I'm really looking forward to listening to some more of his work now.
I cannot recommend all of it highly enough. Like, I mean, just all of it. Start at the beginning, keep going.
Brilliant. Yeah, we'll do. Great stuff. Well, thanks a lot for your time, Frank. I really appreciate it, and thanks for sharing your stories with us.
Well, thanks for asking me to be part of this. I think it's a wonderful project.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Very excited about celebrating more people's lives in songs, and I'm always happy to hear when other people have had such success stories like yours with your song, of celebrating someone's life in the song, and how impactful that is to so many people. It's really beautiful. And you're doing some live streams and things during.
Yeah, I'm doing every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. UK time. I'm doing a live stream, and each one's for a different independent venue, because with everything that's happening in the world right now, that's a challenging business right now. So I'm doing my best to help out. So and there's a few other things here and there, but the main one is Thursdays at 8:30, a live stream on my YouTube.
Brilliant. So I'll tag all that in the description for this, so people can go and check it out. And I'll also put a link to your book.
Yes.
I'll have to get myself a copy of that. I hadn't heard of that one before, but that sounds great.
Yeah, the book's called Try This at Home. So check it out.
Brilliant. Right, so thanks a lot for your time, Frank. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
And thanks for tuning in, everyone. We're back with another episode soon.